Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Final day of ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Both sides raise concerns over names of hostages and prisoners to be released today. Uttarkashi Tunnel collapse rescue efforts to continue despite expected rains. Prime Minister Narendra Modi closely monitoring the situation. Tensions rise in the Korean peninsula. North Korea increases deployment at borders with South Korea following suspension of mutual military accord. Former airline boss Christopher Luxon sworn in as New Zealand's Prime Minister along with his new right-of-centre government. As Israel and Hamas enter the final day of an agreed 4-day ceasefire on Monday, both sides have raised concerns over the lists of Israeli hostages and prisoners due to be released today. An official said Qatari mediators were working with both Israel and Hamas to resolve the issues and avoid further delays. This comes as US President Joe Biden said he hoped that the pause in fighting between Israel and Hamas can continue for as long as hostages are being released. Meanwhile, EU's foreign policy chief Josep Borrell said the 4-day truce is an important first step in Israel-Hamas conflict, but much more is needed to find a way out of the crisis.
And the release of civilian hostages, this is an important first step. We appreciate the role of Qatar, Egypt and others in achieving it. A Palestinian state in Gaza, in the West Bank and East Jerusalem is the best and only long-term guarantee for Israel's security. There will not be peace or security for Israel without a Palestinian state.
Elon Musk met Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday and inspected the remains of an Israeli kibbutz near the Gaza border. Israel hosted Elon Musk, announcing that a principled agreement had been reached for the use of SpaceX's Starlink communication system in the Gaza Strip. Netanyahu's office said the Prime Minister has discussed the security aspects of artificial intelligence with Elon Musk in a live online discussion.
On his way back, he noticed several terrorists that were right over here. It's a symbol in the kibbutz. You have kids inside, the mothers and the fathers running around with them, but it's holding shells, specifically of the Negev.
In the third exchange of hostages under the Israel-Hamas truce deal, 17 hostages were freed on Sunday, which included 14 Israelis and 3 Thai citizens.
It was an emotional reunion for these Israelis. Their wait was finally over. The latest batch of freed hostages returned to families on Sunday. Jubilant Israelis flocked in southern Israel, where hostages were brought for preliminary health checks.
The physical condition of the children and the mothers that came to us is now stable. They are undergoing a medical and emotional evaluation by the medical and psychosocial team of the Schneider Children's Hospital.
85-year-old Yafa Adar, embraced by her family in Israel, is now trying to think together how to help with her recovery.
I can say that she's tough, and I can say that she said that she was thinking about the family a lot, and that it helped her survive, and that she could hear the voices of the great-grandchildren calling her, and that it gives her a lot of power.
Another Israeli-Irish child hostage, Emily Korenberg, also reunited with her sister, Natalie Hand. Her father, Tom Hand, said that his daughter has lost weight but was doing better than expected.
We finally got Emily back from the hands of the Gazan terrorists. We're still fighting and want Raya Rotem, Yaya's sister, Hilal's mother. We want her back. As they promised, they wouldn't release children without their mothers, but they did. We're in the hospital, Safra Tel HaShomer, taking care of Emily.
Sharon Avigdori and her daughter, Noam, from Kibbutz Be'eri, were also among the 13 Israeli hostages and 4 foreign nationals released on Saturday.
Well, DD India's Sarah Coates joins us live from Tel Aviv. Sarah, ceasefire enters final 24 hours now. What do we expect from here? Could the pause be extended?
Well, look, that remains to be seen. We do know that right now Qatar is mediating once again between Israel and Hamas. This is over the lists that were provided to each party on who would be released tonight. We're talking about the Palestinian prisoners and also these Israeli and foreign national hostages. Now, according to Palestinian sources, Hamas believes that there are 6 names that should have been on that list that are not. It says that it's urging Israel to use a seniority principle, saying that people who were jailed first should be the first to actually be released. So look, the Palestinians, the Hamas group, rather, I should say, is pushing Israel to include these 6 names on that list, while Israel says that Hamas has been breaking the deal because on the Israeli list it says that there are families which have been split up. Now, according to the deal, all families must remain together. So look, there is some contention there. Qatar really working overtime to try and smooth things out ahead of this potential final release a little later this evening. But we do know right now the Israeli establishment, the War Cabinet, is meeting to try and discuss these matters and see where to go from here.
All right. And Sarah, is it possible that if more captives are released by Hamas, there's a possibility of ceasefire extension?
Well, look, this is what Israel says. It says it is willing to extend this ceasefire. We just heard that from an Israeli government spokesperson just a matter of minutes ago.
Okay.
But the problem here is that Hamas has been saying over and over again that it actually doesn't know where a number of these captives are. That's because it says that other factions inside the Gaza Strip, like Palestinian Islamic Jihad, are actually holding these people. So first it needs to go in and actually locate them to, of course, be able to release them. But we do know that Israel is willing to give an extra day, up to 4 days, for each 10 people that are released on a daily basis. We do know there are around 184 people still being held inside the Gaza Strip, and there is a lot of pressure on the Israeli government to do everything it can to bring these people back. We've seen this Bring Them Home campaign really growing louder, protests right across the country every day, with people saying not just these 50 original captives that were included in this deal should be released, that it should be absolutely everybody. And just finally, we have heard from Hamas and we've also heard from Palestinian Islamic Jihad. They have both said that they will release all of these captives, including soldiers, if Israel releases all 7,200 Palestinian inmates from Israeli prisons. So look, this is where we're at as we go into these final few hours, just before this ceasefire is expected to expire.
Well, that remains to be seen whether the ceasefire will be extended or not. But Sarah, in the context of the recent 4-day truce, can you elaborate on the specific strategies employed by the United Nations to maximize the delivery of food, water, medicine and fuel to Gaza?
Well, look, as part of this deal, there were said to be 200 fuel trucks, rather aid trucks, including fuel trucks, to cross through the Rafah crossing into the Gaza Strip every day. Now, we do understand that this has been happening. I was watching some live images just a little while ago, seeing queues and queues of trucks lining up to go through that crossing. They are entering the coastal enclave, but according to the United Nations and other aid groups that work down in the Strip, it is simply not enough. And look, we do need to put this into perspective. 200 aid trucks on a daily basis compared to at least 500 trucks that were coming through on a daily basis before this blockade was put on the Gaza Strip, before all these extra regulations were put on in the wake of October 7. So according to aid groups, according to the United Nations, what is going into the Strip is simply not enough to sustain these people. We are talking about major amounts of food, water, and also fuel, which is desperately needed in larger quantities to actually get these this infrastructure like water wells, desalination plants, and also sewage treatment facilities to be able to work at their regular capacity, given the number of people who have been displaced to the southern part of the Strip. We're talking 1.5 million people sheltering in a very, very small area, with reports that disease is potentially on the brink of spreading, and also, as I said, not enough to go around for the large amount of people that are there.
All right, on that note, thanks for joining in, Sarah. And efforts to rescue 41 workers trapped inside the Silkyara under construction tunnel in India's Uttarkashi are in full swings. The remaining parts of the auger machine stuck in the rubble were removed today. Vertical drilling is being done to make an escape route for the trapped workers. Meanwhile, a delegation led by Principal Secretary to Prime Minister Pramod Kumar Mishra took stock of the efforts. He also spoke to the trapped workers and their families, while Union Home Secretary Ajay Kumar Bhalla inquired about the food items sent to the workers trapped inside the tunnel. National Disaster Management Authority member Lieutenant General Syed Atta Hasnain during a press conference informed that vertical drilling has reached 30 to 32 meters.
Manual आर्मी के इंजीनियर्स, रैट माइनर्स और जो बाकी टेक्निकल लोग हैं वहां पर, वो एक साथ एकजुट होकर दो की टोली में अंदर जाकर और धीरे धीरे आगे बढ़ेंगे। तो 15 मीटर कल शाम को हासिल हो गया था वर्टिकल ड्रिलिंग में। अब खुशी आपको बताने में कि तकरीबन 30 से 32 मीटर, एग्जैक्ट नहीं मालूम है कि 30 से तकरीबन 32 मीटर जो है वो हासिल हो गया है।
Earlier, addressing a press conference, Neeraj Kherwal, Secretary Government of Uttarakhand, said that the auger machine, which was stranded, has been taken out by cutting in parts, and the welding operation is also underway.
जो हमारा कल काम था वो ऑगर मशीन निकालने वाला, वो प्रॉपर पूरा हो चुका है और आगे का काम अभी जो पाइप वेल्ड करने का भी है, वो भी 3 मीटर का एक पाइप ऑलरेडी वेल्ड कर लिया गया है। तो संभवतः अभी जैसे अगले हाफ टू 1 आवर के अंदर दे विल ट्राई, जो बाकी बचा हुआ पार्ट निकालने के लिए होगा ना, पुश करेंगे, तो दे विल ट्राई टू डू दैट।
Mahmood Ahmed, Managing Director, National Highways and Infrastructure Development, said, "We are working on multiple options simultaneously. We should not see this as vertical drilling versus horizontal drilling. Our aim is to rescue the trapped workers."
हम कोई एक ऑप्शन पे अगर हम टिके रहे तो उसमें भी बाधाएं आती है। हमारा शुरू से ये प्लान रहा है कि हम कई ऑप्शंस में साइमल्टेनियसली काम करें, जो हम कर रहे हैं। तो हम इसको वर्टिकल ड्रिलिंग वर्सेस हॉरिजॉन्टल ड्रिलिंग के माध्यम से नहीं देखें। हम वो अलग काम है, ये अलग काम है। हमारा मकसद बस एक है कि हम जल्द से जल्द अपने साथी को बाहर निकाल पाएं। किसी भी जरिया से हम जाएंगे, जो पहले हो जाएगा उसी को हम पुश करेंगे ज़्यादा।
And a spokesperson for Meta, Andy Stone, has been added to Russia's wanted list, according to an online database maintained by the country's Interior Ministry. Voice of America has reported. In October, Russian authorities classified Meta as terrorist and extremist organization. Muscovites woke up on Monday to a snow-covered city after overnight heavy snowfall. Parts of the city were buried in massive snow drifts, disrupting transport, delaying flights, and making it tough to get around for pedestrians. Against the backdrop of Christmas songs, hundreds of South Korean men and women gathered at a hotel near Seoul, dressed in their best with name tags hanging on their clothes, hoping to find love. New South Korean girl group Baby Monster have released their debut single, Batter Up, a catchy pop track with colorful music video. The group was expected to release their first track back in September, media reports, but due to unknown reasons, the release was pushed back. And still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Christopher Luxon sworn in as New Zealand's Prime Minister, says top priority is to improve economy. North China continues to grapple with a surge of respiratory illnesses. How? We'll tell you. Coastal communities in Ghana's capital, Accra, are gradually being wiped out. Stay with us to know why.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts. We demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
You're watching DD India Live. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has said there was a positive momentum behind the British economy after announcing projects worth nearly $37 billion in the private sector. Sunak held a meeting with global executives in his bid to restore the country as Europe's top foreign direct investment destination. The British Prime Minister hopes his wooing of foreign investors will help speed up Britain's economy.
Business world, attended by over 200 of the world's leading CEOs and investors. My singular focus is driving growth and creating jobs across the UK. So I'm delighted that we've secured investments worth around £30 billion, 3 times the amount that was secured last time this summit was held a little while ago.
The United States, UK and more than a dozen other countries have unveiled what a senior US official described as the first detailed international agreement on how to keep artificial intelligence safe from rogue actors. In a 20-page document unveiled on Sunday, 18 countries agreed on companies designing and using AI to develop and deploy it in a safe manner to avoid misuse. The agreement is non-binding and carries general recommendations such as monitoring AI systems for abuse, protecting data from tampering and vetting software suppliers. New Zealand's new government was sworn in on Monday, with Parliament expected to convene next week to work on new policies, including a new central bank mandate and lifting a ban on oil and gas exploration. New Zealand Governor-General Cindy Kiro swore National Party leader Christopher Luxon as the country's 42nd Prime Minister, along with his ministers of his cabinet, at the Government House in Wellington. The party signed coalition agreements with Liberation Act New Zealand and Populist New Zealand First on Friday, allowing the three parties to form a government, bringing an end to 6 years of left-wing governments in New Zealand. South Korean military claims North Korea has deployed soldiers and heavy weapons at guard posts near the border, following the suspension of a military accord between the two nations. This comes amidst warnings from Pyongyang that it would continue to exercise its sovereign rights, including through satellite launches, while allegedly restoring demolished guard posts in several locations along with its border with South Korea. And DD India's Chris Gilbert sent us this report from Tokyo.
North Korea did provide some notice that it was going to attempt another satellite launch sometime before December. It did so. It followed through on that just under a week ago. At that time, it said it was intended to launch more satellites in that window, which I've not seen yet, of course, but it is repeating those vows at the moment. The significance of all this, of course, is that move by South Korea in response to suspend Article 1, Clause 3 of the CMA, the Comprehensive massive military agreement that put in place no-fly zones in an attempt to de-escalate the whole region. And what we've seen in response from North Korea to that is, as you said, the reconstruction of some guard posts along the DMZ. North Korea always justifies, or for the most part, always justifies what it does militarily as in self-defense and the protections of its rights against what it perceives to be military assertiveness from South Korea and its allies like the US. So again, no surprises that it is reconstructing these guard posts, but certainly inflammatory behavior from both sides. It's hard to quantify hostilities between two countries, but if we look at the statistics, it's been a relatively quiet year from North Korea in terms of missile launches. It's launched about half of what it did last year, which was, of course, a record year. So we've not seen the rise in tensions from the military side of things, but we have seen a simmering due to the maneuvering from both sides geopolitically. North Korea, of course, getting much closer and reaffirming and showing up its ties with Moscow, and South Korea, of course, expediting a warming of ties with Tokyo and with Washington as well.
With China battling surge in respiratory illnesses, India is on alert and has decided to proactively review preparedness and measures in view of emerging public health situation in China. More in this report.
China is battling a surge in respiratory illnesses. Cases among children are appearing especially high in northern areas like Beijing and Liaoning province. And in these areas, hospitals are warning of long waits. China's health ministry urged local authorities to increase the number of fever clinics.
It's very critical that one is that for the medical service sector, they need to develop so-called graded health admission system, because you have to avoid the sudden surge of patients and coming into the clinic and the hospitals. One of the problems is that when a lot of people coming into the hospital systems, actually the hospital could be overwhelmed by so many patients, and if you do not actually deal with the situation properly, there will be a lot of cross-infections.
China's National Health Commission spokesperson Mi Feng says the surge in acute respiratory illnesses is linked to simultaneous circulation of several kinds of pathogens, most prominently influenza.
Surveillance shows that recent respiratory infectious diseases are dominated by influenza, in addition to those caused by rhinovirus, mycoplasma, pneumonia, respiratory syncytial virus, and adenovirus.
The official picture is that this is being taken seriously, that there's an unusual rise in the number of respiratory illnesses, especially flu, that several different bacteria and viruses, pathogens as they're called, are involved. But because those are relatively normal ones, in effect, the doctors know how to deal with these. These viruses, these pathogens, they aren't unusual. It's not like COVID, when suddenly doctors were surprised by a new virus that hadn't been seen before, and they didn't quite know how to treat it.
The Indian Health Ministry has issued an advisory and has decided to proactively review preparedness and measures in view of emerging public health situation in China. In a letter by Union Health Secretary to states and UTs, they have been advised to immediately review public health and hospital preparedness measures like availability of HR, hospital beds, drugs and vaccines for influenza, medical oxygen, antibiotics, personal protective equipment, testing kits and reagents, functionality of oxygen plants and ventilators, infection control measures in health facilities at a senior level. All states and union territories have been advised to implement operational guidelines for revised surveillance strategy in the context of COVID-19 shared earlier this year, which provides for integrated surveillance of respiratory pathogens presenting as cases of influenza like illness and severe acute respiratory illness. They have also been asked to ensure that the trends should be closely monitored by the district and state surveillance units of the Integrated Disease Surveillance Project, particularly of children and adolescents. The data is required to be uploaded on the official portal, particularly from the public health institutions, including medical college hospitals. States also asked to send nasal and throat swab samples of patients with SARI, particularly of children and adolescents, to virus research and diagnostic laboratories located in the states for testing for respiratory pathogens. A representative of the World Health Organization has stated that although there has been an increase in respiratory infections in China, it is not as high as it was prior to COVID-19, and that no novel or uncommon viruses have been discovered in the latest cases. As per the WHO, the release of COVID-19 restrictions coinciding with the onset of winter season have led to this surge. Bureau Report, DD India.
Coastal communities in Ghana's capital, Accra, are gradually being wiped out due to erosion. Environmentalists say the rise in sea levels linked to climate change is largely to blame. They are warning that the situation is likely to get worse if action is not taken to reverse the trend. DD India's correspondent Nabil Ahmed Rufai reports for more.
This house hanging over the cliff edge was once home to Bawa Seidu. He lived here with his family until the sea began to claim it.
When I was a young boy, the sea was very far from my house. Even during high tides, the sea never came close to destroying our houses. But when I turned 25 years old, I noticed that the sea had moved closer to my house and the tidal waves started to wash buildings away.
Ghana loses about 2 meters of its coastline every year to coastal erosion. According to UNESCO, nearly 40% of Ghana's coastal land was lost to erosion between 2005 and 2017. Hundreds of people in this community have already been displaced. Experts blame rising sea levels linked to climate change and other human activities.
A few years ago, this area was a drinking spot for partygoers who came to the beach. Now it's totally gone, and what remains are the pillars of the former recreation place.
The government has been responding to the situation by constructing sea defense walls along the shoreline, but the project has been halted due to the lack of funds. Experts say the country must turn to climate adaptive measures, which are less costly.
Mangroves, cultivation can help, manage, the sea level rise and the impact of the sea in communities. So maybe we could start doing this kind of engagement or interventions whilst we expect, government to take action.
In 2009, developed countries pledged to contribute $100 billion in climate finance annually to help developed countries adapt and mitigate against climate change. The support was to begin in 2020 and end in 2025, but analysts are concerned the commitment has not been met, which is why developing nations continue to bear the brunt of environmental change.
They must also make available the appropriate technology, that we as Africans can use to address the impact of climate change. Of course, when it comes to technology, we're not talking about the green economy, the renewable energy, as replacement, for dirty fuel or fossil fuel, if you like. But we need technology, we need support to be able to implement these kind of interventions.
But these interventions are a long way from being realized, and all the while, the sea is eroding the land. Bawa Seidu is worried that his community may soon disappear. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, in Accra, Ghana, reporting for DD India.
All right, and that's all for this edition of DD India Live. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.